Greetings. Good day, good night, wherever you are in the world. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, tuning in to the recording. Just want to put out a quick post. You're now listening to your host, Sharif Ali, and tuning in to the vault. Just want to thank you all for tuning in. We're going to go live, and as well, you can catch this in the replay. We're going to be talking about in this post very briefly what a Cestui Que trust is and what a social security number really means. See, I think a lot of people are not up to date on what that entity actually is, and I know that it's kind of the default number that people use in business and in commerce, and I think it's very important to bring forth this information because it's considered the social security number is supposed to be tied to a legal name. So I always want to talk about these things. So once again, just want to talk to you all live. What does the social security number really means? And I think that that's really important. So this is your host Sharif Ali. You're tuned into the vault. Please feel free to subscribe. Go on all our pages and make sure you stay up to date. I want to start as we always do, thanking the ancestors, universe, and the creator for bringing us here. It's always good to start out in a position of thanks, and we're going to go in like we always do. So what is a social security number and what it really means? Is basically it's a Cestui Que trust. If you don't know, I have it written in the description here. Cestui Que trust. I'll spell it out for you all. Cestui. That's Cestui, and Que trust. And a lot of people don't know that they're already dealing in trust in the public. This is what a public trust looks like. This is the default trust that you have in the public. So when I come in and I come out in the public and I say, look, we need to be in a position of own nothing, control everything. I'm going to show you all how this is what a public trust traditionally looks like. This is a trust. You all can Google this. It is a legal term, and you all can see that it's called a Cestui Que trust. So the social security number, you all know, is inside of a trust. But guess what? You didn't create it. Okay, so what is a Cestui Que trust? I think a lot of people don't know what that means, so I'm going to read the legal definition. You all can get these definitions once again from either Google. I recommend you go to the law definitions, not just the colloquial term, or go to the Black's Law Dictionary, which is the best place to go. So a Cestui Que trust, and once again, this is the social security number. Okay, the social security number is inside of a trust, or it is a representation of a trust. Why? Because assets are held in it, and supposedly they're supposed to be held until you actually die. Thank you, Greg Clark, for tuning in live. Definitely going to be answering a lot of questions on this episode, so just be patient. But Cestui Que trust, this is what the social security number is. So thank you everybody for joining me live. He who has the right to a beneficial interest in and out of an estate. The legal title is vested in another. I am going to break this sentence down just immediately. We can go through this entire definition, but point being is that you hold equitable title. How do you hold equitable title? Equitable title means that you hold the actual thing itself, the beneficiary or the benefits. Okay, you're in a benefit position. You're not in a position of legal title. You're in a position of equitable title. Okay, the person who possesses the equitable right to the property receives the rents, issues, profits thereof. The legal estate, which is vested in the trustee. So who's the trustee of the actual entity, Social Security Administration Trust? A lot of people think that they're the trustee, but how can you be the trustee and you're the beneficiary? This is what the commingling of a trust looks like. This is what the public trust looks like. This is one of the trusts to be the worst trust to be in inside of the public, because you as the individual taxpayer are the beneficiary, and guess what? The beneficiary is taxed. Why? Because they are receiving in the beneficiary position. Isn't this what you're receiving? You're receiving rents, issues, profits thereof, whereas the legal title is actually vested in who? The United States. The United States is holding your estate. That's why when you pass away, they're the first people in line to administer your estate. This is a state law. This is a tax planning situation. Okay? So it says it has been proposed to substitute for its uncalled term in English, which is beneficiary. So the Social Security Administration or the Social Security number, all that means is you are a beneficiary. That's why I have trustee training, because you have to learn how to be in a position of being a trustee of your estate. And that means to own nothing. As a trustee, you don't own the estate, you control the estate. That is the power of being in a position of trustee. Okay, and it says you're not in a position of beneficiary. It says, and the latter, though still far from the universally adopted, is become quite frequently used. And most people, they don't understand that the Social Security number, once again, is a beneficiary position. Okay, it is a Cestui Que trust. You are in Cestui Que use. I'm going to read what Cestui Que use is. Cestui Que use is a person for whose benefit the trust was created. So think about it. If you're using the Social Security Administration number, that means, aren't you in a position to benefit from it? Yes. The person entitled to an equitable as opposed to legal estate. See, that's why the state continues to hold your estate after you pass, because they actually have the birth certificate, the legal aspect of what it is, the legal documents. Okay, you vested that in the United States, and it's not bad. It's just not the best position to be in when it comes to doing business and receiving profits, rents, and interest. Okay, you can be in a higher position. Okay, you can be in a position of control everything and never owning anything. Okay, because anything you own, you can be sued for. So think about it. If you're in an equitable position, which means you own it, that means that you are in control of it, right? But guess what? Now that you are in control of it and you own it, it's not just control, it's ownership too, because ownership incurs liability, and wherever profits and interest and all those things go, that's where taxes are sure to follow. Why? Because they have to tax something. Okay, so I just wanted to make this video for you all to understand that the Social Security number is not bad, it's not good, it's just not the best number to operate in commerce. And the reason why is because it's a trust that's being created for you. You all can Google Cestui Que trust, and you can see how you are indirectly put in a position of being a beneficiary, even though you are out doing all the work for it. This is called an amalgamation. That's where you've turned yourself into a legal fiction. Okay, go look up the legal definition for a person. A person is a legal fiction. Okay, so that's the same thing with a trust. A trust is a person. A corporation is a person. Okay, so it's very important for you all to understand the position of own nothing, control everything as far as the entities go when it comes to entrepreneurship. So when you're utilizing your Social Security number, guess what? You're still in a position of beneficiary. That's why it's so important to be in a position of trustee. Okay, and that's why I put together private trustee training, is to put people in a position where they own nothing but they control everything and are utilizing the proper trust. The Social Security number, the Social Security Administration trust, is a trust. They've created trust for uninformed families so they can make sure that so the government doesn't have to have this heavy burden of taking care of homeless people. So they've created an entity that says, we're going to force you all through this number that you're going to use in commerce, because you haven't been educated on how to go out and utilize other entities other than this. This is the default information that you get. This is the public information you get. This is the public trust you get. They never talk to you in the public about what? Private trust. There is a thing called a private trust. You all hear about private corporations. How you think they're surviving? Private corporations are private trust. They're just utilizing corporate structures in the public because they want to issue shares to who? Common people, because they got common stock. That means public stock. Did you know that there's private stockholders? Did you know that there's private investors? Yes. You all know this. So there is a difference between public knowledge and private knowledge. And it is unfortunate that the public schools don't address private information or private trust, but it's not their obligation to. Why? Because trusts are nothing more than contracts. Let's be clear about that. Trusts are contracts, okay? So that means you sign a signature on it. Secondly, contract law is private law. Well, I want to instruct you all on something else too. Family law, who was supposed to teach you this information, that's why I always tell people this trust information, the private trust information, is passed down through a private mentor or through private families or private communities. Okay, and guess what? Family law is private law. So your family, a private family, was supposed to teach you this information. But I understand most people, their family are public people. They've all been given a public education. Well, we're talking about private information, private family information. Family law is private law. You all can look that up. Okay? No one can tell you how to govern your family. But guess what? When you start taking your family into the public, then you start giving up private rights and you start going in and getting public beneficial rights. And that's where people are. They're dependent on the public, and the public is synonymous with government. The private is synonymous with foreign. So when everybody says, I want to be sovereign and all these other different things, all you got to do is just maintain your privacy. Okay? It's that simple. You don't need to proclaim that you're foreign. That's like proclaiming that you're private. Of course you're private. If you don't have any interest in the public, then you're not private. I mean, if you don't have any interest in the public, then you're private. So what does a social security mean? A social security number really mean? It means that you have a public trust and you're administering it right now from a position of non-power. Why? Because you don't even have the legal title. You have the equitable title, which still means that you are just receiving the benefits. You are not in a position of control. The beneficiaries can do things for a trust, and not in all trusts, but they can in some trusts. So it's very important to put yourself in a position of own nothing, control everything. And that is what we go over and I teach in my private trustee training system. And that is something that you can enroll. We're definitely having enrollment up until September right now. I'm just so thankful to move into the platform of YouTube. We haven't always been on the platform of YouTube, but been doing a lot of private trustee training for years now and want to get into just having more individuals enroll. And so private trustee training is something you can enroll in at hfrn.vault@gmail.com. But if you need more time, just go back to the Sharif Ali page on YouTube and make it a point to look at the past episodes about public and private. See, it's all about maintaining privacy, ladies and gentlemen. This is business, it's not personal. This is not your natural name, it's your legal name. That's why they call it a legal name. Okay? That's why your social security number or a social security number is tied to your legal name. Just like if you went out and got a corporation or another trust, guess what? It's going to be called a legal person. They call trust, corporations, and associations legal persons. They are legal names. This is business, it's not personal. So it's business. Let's act accordingly. Let's go out to make a profit and do business. We live in capitalism, and if you live in the United States. Okay, so the United States, by default, has given out a trust. It's called a public trust. That is called a Cestui Que trust, but obviously most people don't know law. The average individual doesn't know law. So guess what? They are given what's called a social security number, which is still a trust. Everyone knows that the social security number is inside of a trust. So it's called a Cestui Que trust. Most people don't know what type of trust it is. It's a public Cestui Que trust, and you are using it as a Cestui Que use, which means you're using it as a beneficiary. And the beneficiary has no control, has no rights in a trust. Why? Because the trustee has all the control. So that's why people think their lives is being controlled by public servants. They're the ones serving on the board for your trust as the public servant. It's a public trust, and the government is a public trustee. And they're administering your estate because you've given them that control. At any time, you can stop using that number, you can stop giving them power, and go into a position of own nothing, control everything, stop receiving the benefits, but control how the benefits are distributed, who the benefits are distributed to. Unless you write a will, doesn't your estate get administered by the trustee, which is the United States? Yes, because you haven't put yourself in a trustee position legally through being a trustee of a private trust. It's just that simple. It's public trust versus private trust. It's trustee versus beneficiary. Can you be the trustee and be the beneficiary? Yes, you can. You just can't be the sole trustee and beneficiary, or sole beneficiary and trustee. Someone else has to hold one of those positions with you if you're going to be a trustee and beneficiary at the same time, if you are. And it's the same thing for someone else. If someone else is going to hold a trustee and a beneficiary position, you have to have someone else in one of those positions. Otherwise, it's called the doctrine of merger. See, this is what we go over in private trustee training. We want to make sure that you're administering your trust privately in a capacity where you don't have to have the government come through and ransack your estate. Did you know that certain last names don't go to court? Why don't they go to court when they're passing on their estate? Because they know how to administer their estates. Everyone has an estate. As soon as you start working, you have an estate. It's something you're working for. It's something you're passing on to your children. You should be working to pass on something to your children. That's why you operate in trust. You can't just pass on your social security number. Remember, it's the public's trust. They're the trustees. They dictate when you can pass on that trust. You can't. Why? Because you're in a beneficiary position. You don't have any control. The trustees have all the control. And they say you can't pass on the social security number. So guess what? The next generation has to go out and start all over. That is what happens in default in the public. But not in the private. In the private, all you do is have the family members step up as your successor trustees. They come in, there's a document already created, there's no estate tax, there's no death tax, there's no inheritance tax. They just step in as trustees over the estate. And this is what we go over in private trustee training. We teach you and educate you on how to administer trust and know how to own nothing, control everything. To put yourself in a position of control. Where do the profits go when the profits come into the business trust and you're the trustee? You don't own the benefits, even though you're working as the trustee. You don't own them. You don't own the profits. The trust does. But guess what? The trust has expenses, so it takes its expenses. It's a legal person. It's just like your social security number. Social security number is a legal person. But guess what? I'm going to tell you something that the trust can do that your social security number can't do. A trust can distribute 100% of its tax liability to its beneficiary. 100%. Whereas your social security number, it has, once again, statutory jurisdiction. It has statutory rules to it. There is a difference between a public trust and a private trust. Private trusts are based off of the contract. Public trusts are based off of public state statutes. That's why what we go over in private trustee training, the average lawyer doesn't know. Because they got bar association cards. They're barrister associations. They stay in the public in their state. They don't even traditionally they don't even have knowledge on how to operate trusts in other states. Why? Because each state is different. That's called a public trust. Doesn't your social security number, when it goes into a different jurisdiction, isn't the state taxes for that entity different? State taxes are different in each state. And if you have a public trust, then you have to know the public laws of that state. And you can't not know it, because that's called negligence. That's malfeasance. You're neglecting your responsibility as what? The fiduciary. When you are the trustee, you are the fiduciary. You are to grow the estate. Not to just be the beneficiary and take all the benefits. You're supposed to be the trustee and grow the estate. That means you're supposed to go hire the correct attorney so you can know the laws of the jurisdiction for that particular state. So those lawyers do come in handy because they know the laws of that state. Same thing with the CPAs. They know the laws of that state. So there's nothing wrong with talking about and having a lawyer for that particular jurisdiction. But that's if you have a public entity. So that's why you are supposed to have a lawyer when you have a public entity such as a social security number for that public jurisdiction. And that's why I've created private trustee training. Enrollment is going to end in September. We'll put people on the wait list. But I'm just thankful and excited that we got a new group coming through. We do events. Private trustee training, if you want to enroll, is hfrn.vault@gmail.com. But we do have events. We all would love for you to come out and meet you and shake your hand. We do have accountants there at our events. We do have lawyers at our events. Why? Because there are people in the public that want to maintain their privacy. Everybody should want to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So we do have events. They're private events. They're always private events. So, we make it a point to help people administer their private estates. It's that simple. Is that illegal? I'm gonna tell you how it's not illegal. Just like you're using a public trust called the Social Security number, there is a private trust. That's why they have private corporations, and they are perfectly legal. And that is for individuals that want to learn how to practice tax avoidance and be private. It's just that simple. Public trust versus private trust. What does the Social Security number really mean? It means that you're utilizing a public trust. One that the state gave you, and they're the trustee and you're the beneficiary. And guess what? The beneficiary receives the tax liability because the trust can pass on 100% of its tax liability. And guess what? You are the beneficiary. You put yourself in many positions and don't know what's going on. Whereas in the private trust situation, we instruct you and share with you how to never own any of the money that comes into the trust, but to control it all. to control your tax liability as a trustee, not as a beneficiary, because the beneficiary receives the tax liability. The trust can pass on its tax liability to another trust. That's what they can do. In a private situation, in a public situation, with your public entity is stuck on you. Now, as a social security number, you can go Google this. You can also pass on, the entity can pass on 30% of its tax liability to a charity tax-free. You all can Google that. Okay? So there are some tax avoidance practices that the social security number can use, but why not put yourself in the best position possible to operate as a trustee, not just as a beneficiary? So I just want to thank you all for tuning in live. Definitely don't need to go long tonight. I know it's Saturday for people out here in the United States. August 12th, been going 12 days strong. Going to go all the way to the 30th, doing an episode every single day. HFRN Period Vault. If you want a private consultation with me, if you would like to enroll in private trustee training before we close the window in September, look forward to you all enrolling. But just look forward to serving you all. All we're doing is just building a private community. And there are many private communities operating every single day right in front of your eyes. It's just people that are understanding how to maintain their privacy. There's nothing illegal about them because contract law is private and no state can impair the obligation of the contract, because that's Article 1, Section 10. Private people, which are the elite, are utilizing private trust. And they're not going to pass any laws. They're not going to wake up today and say, well, there's some people over the internet talking about private trust. So what? The contract makes the law. So they don't want to put themselves in a position where their estates can be compromised when they're utilizing private trust. So don't think any laws are going to be passed against private trust. I promise you that. They're not. Rich people are using private trust. The common individual, they're using their social security number, which is a public trust. It's a Cestui Que trust. So don't think no laws are going to get passed for that. And I can show you multiple private trust cases where the government's not even allowed to see the individual's books. When I say individual, I'm even talking about the individual trust itself's books, because those are private if you're in a private situation. That's how you maintain privacy. That's why Donald Trump doesn't have to show taxes. A, because he's not using his Cestui Que trust, which is his social security number. He's utilizing a private trust. That's what he's utilizing. He's not using a public trust. He's using a Cestui Que. He's using, a private trust, not a Cestui Que trust. So when you think that, oh, he's wrong for not showing his taxes, guess what? He's not a beneficiary. He's a trustee. So now you all can start looking at all the things in the public that says someone's a trustee. That means they don't own it. They just control it. And just because they have the title of CEO doesn't mean they own it. That means they're an executive. There's a difference. So I just want to thank you all for tuning in live. If you guys have any question, feel free to type into the chat. I'm going to take some questions here. But if not, I look forward to connecting with you all tomorrow, or either an email, hfrn.vault@gmail.com. Love you all. Appreciate you all. Thank you all for tuning in live. If not, I'm going to give you all the salute and welcome you all on your night. And all the best to you all. Peace and blessings.